Under the common law of England, an unmarried woman could own property, make a contract, or sue and be sued. But a married woman, defined as being one with her husband, gave up her name and virtually all of her property came under her husband's control. During the early history of the United States, a man virtually owned his wife and children as he did material possessions. If a poor man chose to send his children to the poorhouse, the mother was legally defenseless to object. In the 19th century, women began working outside their homes, notably in textile mills and garment shops, often working 12 hours a day in poor conditions. Not until the 1910s were there legislation limiting working hours and improving those conditions for both women and children. Anne Garvis worked hard towards establishing a national day of recognition for mothers. The first bill proposed the establishment of Mother's Day in 1908. Because of her efforts, Mother's Day was soon celebrated in 46 states, Canada, and Mexico, and in 1914, the U.S. Congress passed a resolution establishing Mother's Day. During the 1960s, several federal laws improved the economic status of women. The Equal Pay Act of 1963 required equal wages for men and women. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 prohibited discrimination against women by any company with 25 or more employees. Despite this, women in 1970 were paid almost 45% less than men for the same jobs. By 1988, this had not improved much, 32%. For many years, retail stores would not issue independent credit cards to married women. Divorced or single women found it difficult to obtain credit to purchase a house or a car. Laws that concerned welfare, crime, prostitution, and abortion all displayed biases against women. Let's go back to colonial America. Women who earned their own living usually became seamstresses or kept boarding houses. Even by the early 19th century, acceptable occupations for working women were limited to domestic work or factories. Women were excluded from the professions, except for writing and teaching. Working women faced discrimination based on the mistaken belief that because they were married or would most likely soon marry, they could not become permanent employees. From 1960 through the 70s, the influx of married women workers accounted for almost half of the labor force. Let's take a look at the political scene. During the 19th century, women organized and participated in a variety of reform movements related to education, prison reform, and prohibition. Let's even go back further in time. During the mid-1800s, Dorothea Dix was a leader for prison reform and for providing mental health care for the needy. Jane Addams and Lillian Wald helped immigrants adjust to city life. The first women's rights conference was held in Seneca Falls, New York, in July 1848. The declaration that emerged was modeled after the Declaration of Independence. Written by Elizabeth Cady Stanton, it claimed that all women and men are created equal and that the history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man toward woman. Followed with a long list of grievances were resolutions for equitable laws, equal education and job opportunities, and the right to vote. Disagreements over the next step caused a split in the women's right movement. Elizabeth and Susan B. Anthony formed the National Woman Suffrage Association, while Lucy Stone organized the American Woman Suffrage Association. The struggle to win the vote was slow and frustrating. The Wyoming Territory allowed women the right to vote in 1869, the Utah Territory in 1870, Colorado in 1893, Idaho in 1896. However, the eastern states resisted. A woman suffrage amendment to the federal Constitution, presented to every Congress, starting in 1878, repeatedly failed. Finally, the right to vote came to fruition with the 19th Amendment in 1920. But political roles continued to be minimal. Sojourner Truth fought for women's rights and to abolish slavery. Mary McLeod Bethune was an early civil rights activist, founding Bethune-Cookman College, one of the few places where African Americans could get a college degree. Rosa Parks sparked a citywide boycott of buses that led to desegregation of buses across the United States. Dolores Huerta fought for Hispanic labor rights and was co-founder of the National Farm Workers Association. It was not until 1984 that a major party selected a woman, Geraldine Ferraro, to run as vice president. But let's go back further in time. Jeannette Rankin of Montana was elected in 1917 as the first woman member of the United States House of Representatives. In 1933, Hattie Caraway of Arkansas became the first woman elected to the United States Senate. Wives of former governors became the first female governors. Miriam Ferguson of Texas, Nellie Taylor Ross of Wyoming. In 1974, Ella Grasso of Connecticut won a governorship on her own merits, as well as Ann Richards of Texas in 1990. In 1971, Patience Latting was elected mayor of Oklahoma City, the largest city with a woman mayor. In 1981, Sandra Day O'Connor became the first woman on the U.S. Supreme Court. Wilma Mankiller became the first woman to lead a major Native American tribe, the Cherokee Nation. Mary Edwards Walker was the first and only woman to receive the U.S. Congressional Medal of Honor. Asked to be a spy for the Union in the Civil War, but became a doctor instead. She often went behind enemy lines, and while behind enemy lines became a prisoner of war. It's amazing what these women accomplished during those particular time periods in life.